All right, morning all. Thank you, Vetang Bhai, uh, Varsha, Chami, Sachin Bhai, whosoever is there, and my dear students. We'll start with the webinar this time, and the topic is company law and audit perspective, where we'll be concerned with and rather dealing with audit under section 139 of the Companies Act 2013 and section 44AB of the Income Tax Act 1961. Now, typically, I've been asked to deal with those topics which are actually very fundamental to audit. So there could be some people from your side who are in second year of your articles, or maybe third year of articles, as the case may be. You'll be knowing certain things, and you may feel it a little repetition. But let it be, there could be some article students also who are in the first year of their articles. So I'm trying to balance this presentation in such a manner that all are benefited to a larger extent. So for them who are in the second year or third year of your articles, you please consider this as a refresher course for you all. And there will be something new for them too. This is the last lady whom I know as the new. I'm sure you guys know certain other ladies who are very beautiful and later. But as far as I am concerned, Priyanka Chopra is the last lady for me. Anyway, that was on the lighter side. So we so happy that we others look at you, they also become happy too. Equality doesn't mean justice, so we try to give equal platform to all of you who actually are in this webinar, and everybody gets the same platform and are dealt with in the same manner. So let's keep our fingers crossed and deal with the topic that we have today. Some points in queue, how do you save your job? These are the last slides on the lighter side, and basically we all know how do we save our jobs. The laws have become so complex, like Companies Act 1956, when it was there, I used to consider myself as one of the authorities on Companies Act 1956, but 2013 Act, even I went a little illiterate on that, and then I regained that experience and so on and so forth, but it is like this, a little complicated. So the scope of this presentation, friends, today is reporting requirements, the basics, fundamentals of accounting standards. We'll be dealing with the audit manual that we have prepared for our firm. Important sections concerning audit, as far as the Companies Act is concerned, 2013. Then certain requirements of CARO 2020. First time note, of course, CARO 2020 has been deferred to the next year, like from 2021. Now we'll be dealing with CARO 2020 as far as financial year 1920 is concerned. We are yet supposed to consider only CARO 2016. You must be knowing all these things. Audit documentation, general approach, audit documentation under section 44AB to a small extent, and audit documentation way forward. So this is a broad scope that we'll be dealing with in this presentation of around 1.5 hours from now. Reporting requirements, the basics. Now let us deal with the important sections. Of course, 1956 Act I have just kept for those people who are seniors in the profession. For you students, I'm sure you guys are knowing more of 2013 sections only. But as the KB it has been section 227.2 of the 1956 Act, now it is being read by section 143.2, which deals with balance sheet, profit and loss account and other documents. Section 143.3 deals with additional information from clause A to G, we say A to J of earlier clause. So we usually write that we have obtained all the information and explanation which to the best of our knowledge and belief are necessary for the purpose of audit, etc. All those lines which are there are being dealt with by section 143.3. Qualifications, etc. In case if you qualify a report or you give adverse report or maybe disclaimer or that kind of a thing is being dealt with by section 143.4. You need to make certain fundamental inquiries under section 143.1, which will be dealing at a later stage. Then you have CARO order under section CARO, that is Companies Auditors Report 2003, which has now become CARO 2020 over a period of time. Then we have fraud reporting, that is to be done under section 143.12, and auditing standards which are there are to be dealt with under section 143.9. These are the fundamental sections. So I would suggest that those who are doing audit under companies, if you are doing an audit of a company, whether it be a private company or a public company as the case may be, unless and until you know section 139 to 148, your audit, I would say, cannot be begun with. So all are requested to please go through these sections 139 to 148, which are fundamentally concerned with the auditor's appointment and auditor's reporting. Now, as far as Companies Act 2013, section 139 is concerned, it is dealing with appointment of auditors. Then next is removal, that is 140 is removal, resignation of auditor and giving special notice for removal of an auditor. 141 is eligibility, qualifications and disqualification of auditors. 142 is dealing with section, remuneration of auditors. Basically, the auditor's remuneration includes even expenses incurred in connection with hospitality, etc. of an auditor, and that's how it is. Okay, but we are not dealing with each and every section right now, because what I'm trying to tell you is that you should know all these sections upfront while you are doing the audit. Then only you'll be able to actually appreciate what the audit is all about. Section 143 per se refers to powers and duties of an auditors and account auditing standards. Okay. Then 144 of the Companies Act deals with auditors not to render certain services. Like in case if you are an auditor of a company, then you can naturally, you cannot write books of account of that company itself. Then you cannot be management consultant to them. You cannot make CMA report to be submitted to the bank. You cannot value shares of that company whom you are auditing. So these are certain restrictions under section 144, which an auditor cannot actually provide these services. So there is a bar. Of course, our institute has also come out with that kind of notification that auditors who can services which cannot be provided by an auditor. But anyways, this is a section you should know that in case you are auditing a company, then you will not render those particular services. You should keep in mind. Then section 145 is auditors to sign audit report, etc. Now, be very specific and concerned about this particular aspect. Section 145. You cannot sign an audit report unless and until the balance sheet is countersigned by the management. So management has to sign the report for balance sheet first, profit and loss account first, accounts first, and then only you as an auditor can sign the balance sheet, and then you can issue the report of your auditor as an auditor. Okay, so be careful on this aspect, please. Next is auditors, section 146, auditors to attend general meeting. So auditor is fundamentally required to attend a general meeting. But for chance, if he does not want or is not able to attend the general meeting, then he should seek at least leave of absence from the management that I will not be able to attend the general meeting. However, if the management is telling that please, or the shareholders are expecting the auditors to be there in the general meeting, then it is due. The auditor is duty bound to come to the general meeting. Then section 147 deals with punishment for contravention. In case if an auditor is contravening any of these provisions, then there are what is the punishment, what is the penalty, etc. That is being dealt with by section 147, and 148 is dealing with post records, post audit, etc., which we as chartered accountants are not much concerned with. But yes, thorough reporting, this section is required to be known. That's the reason I have put this into the slide. So these are the fundamental audit sections which one should keep in mind. Now let us go to fundamentals of accounting standards and others. Now we have standards by the ICAI, that is Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We have standards by MCA, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs. We do have standards guidance note of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So let us say that you are auditing a builder and developer. In that case, they don't have any accounting standard per se, because accounting standard 7, which is there on construction contract, is applicable to the contractors. So as far as the bidder is concerned, he is governed still by the guidance not of institute. There is no particular accounting standard as of today as far as normal accounting standards are available. Of course, under Ind AS there is a standard, but I'm not dealing with Ind AS per se right. Standards on auditing which we need to be careful about, because as the way accounting standards are code of conduct for companies while making accounts. Standards on auditing are the code of conduct as far as we as auditors are concerned. How do we do our audit? So this is how it is. Next, now we have IFRS, and that IFRS now has been conversed or has been simplified in the Indian version in form of Ind AS, that is Indian Accounting Standards, which are applicable by and large to the listed companies as well. Subsequently, over a period of time, this will be applicable even to others, other entities too. We have ICDS too, that is Income Tax Computation and Disclosure Standards. So now let us understand what are the standards by ICAI and MCA. There are set of standards which are given by the ICAI. There is a set of standard which is given by MCA. Then we have Ind AS, and then you have income tax standards which are ICDS, income tax computation and disclosure standards. So the difference between all these standards is fundamentally is that standards of ICAI as of today are also valid, but not for corporate entities. In case if you are auditing a non-corporate entity, let's say an individual or a proprietary concern or a partnership concern as the case may be, then the standards of institute are applicable and not the standards of Ministry of Corporate. But in case if you are following standard, if you are auditing a company, corporate entity, then it is the standard of MCA that are applicable for a corporate entity. Okay. Ultimately, by and large, the institute standards and the ministry standards are at par. Okay, so now there is no cause of worry. But while you are writing that which set of accounting standards you have followed as a chartered accountant, you must know that in case if I am auditing a proprietary concern or a partnership concern as the case may be, the standards of institute have to be referred and not the standards of ministry. At the same time, in case if I am auditing a company, then I have to refer to standards of ministry and not the standards of institute. So this particular fact needs to be kept in mind while auditing an entity. Then as far as Ind AS is concerned, as I said, they are by and large applicable to all the listed entities, including NBFCs, that is non-banking financial companies from the last year. And we have ICDS, that is Income Tax Computation and Disclosure Income Computation and Disclosure Standards, which per se is applicable to all the entities who are following mercantile system of accounting, okay, and who are into business or who are who are offering income from other sources. So these are the two heads of income to whom in ICDS are applicable. Now we have levels of enterprises as defined by the institute: level 1, level 2, and level 3 enterprises. Now, which are this level 1? Why this level 1, level 2, level 3 enterprises are made? I'll just explain that. But before that, let us understand what these levels are. The first level is listed or proposed to be listed companies, banks, financial institutions, insurance companies, enterprises which turnover of 50 crore rupees or more in the preceding year, 10 crore rupees or more of borrowing from banks, and holding and subsidiary companies of all these entities, then they are level 1 enterprises. Level 2 enterprises are enterprises with a turnover from 1 crore to 50 crore. Their borrowings are from 1 crore to 10 crore, and holding and subsidiary companies of above. And level 3 enterprises are all other enterprises which are less than or not covered by level 1 and level 2. Now, why these levels? Let us understand. Level 1 enterprise, all the mandatory accounting standards as are applicable or as made mandatory by the institute are applicable. I'll give you an example also. Level 2 enterprises are those enterprises wherein they don't have to comply with non-mandatory accounting standards. And level 3 enterprises as such are those enterprises which have to follow non-mandatory accounting standards, but उनके लिए कोई ऐसा per se rule nahi hai, because in case if they are not being audited, they whether they follow accounting standards or not, but yes, they need to follow. I'm not telling that they should not be or they are not obliged to follow accounting standards, but yes, institute has made a demarcation that level 3 enterprises are those which are not covered by. So as an auditor, we may not be concerned with level 3 enterprises as far as the accounting standard compliance is concerned. Yeah. So I'll give you an example before we go ahead. Let us say level 1. I'll give you an example of say accounting standard 17, segment reporting. Now, segment reporting is such a standard which has not been made mandatory by the institute as of now. Okay. So level 1 enterprises which are there, they have to make segment reporting also. Same way lease has to be followed by level 1 enterprise, S19. As compared to that, in case if you are not a level 1 enterprise, there is your level 2 enterprise, then you don't have to follow segment reporting. So if your turnover is less than 1 crore, rather more than 1 crore but less than 50 crore, or your borrowing is more than 1 crore but less than 10 crore, then you may not follow or you may not give the segment reporting in your financial statements, and that is a good compliance because you are level 2 enterprise. Okay, so this is the difference between level 1 and level 2 enterprise. Okay. Now, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs on December 7, 2006 issued Accounting Standard Rules 2006. Now, the same rules have been adopted under the new law, that is 2013 and 2014, and under the Accounting Standard Rules 2014 as amended by 2015 rules. Okay. And the fundamentals of these rules, basically now these rules are applicable only to the companies. Okay. So we, on one side we have non-corporate entities who are covered by the institute standards or institute rules, and corporate entities who are covered by the standards of ministry and the rules of ministry. So now what we are dealing with are the standards with respect to companies. Okay. So the way we have level 1 and level 2 enterprises, the same way here they have defined those level 2 enterprises as small and medium sized companies. Okay, SMC. So same conditions whose equity or debt securities are not listed or are not in process of listing on any stock exchange, whether in India or outside India, which is not a bank or a financial institution or an insurance company, whose turnover does not exceed 50 crore rupees, whose borrowing does not include 10 crore rupees, and who is not a holding or subsidiary company. So if you consider these particular 5 conditions, they will match with these conditions. Okay. So if you are level 2 enterprise, as per the institute, in that case you are an SMC, that is you are a small and medium sized company as per MCA. If you are level 1 enterprise, as per the institute, in that case, you will be a large enterprise as far as the ministry is concerned, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs is concerned. So, an SMC is given certain exemptions from following accounting standards. As to this, all large enterprises are supposed to follow all the accounting standards across the board. So, they have to follow the segment reporting and other standards also. So here the difference basically that small enterprises exemption given, large enterprises exemption not given. Small enterprises are equal to level 2, large enterprises are equal to level 1. So this is the fundamental difference between the two and the similarity also in this case. Now, be careful on this, that supposingly you are a general, there is a general instruction for SMCs that if you are an SMC and opting for exemption for a particular accounting standard, okay, that I am not following a particular standard, let us say segment reporting, or let us say cash flow statement, accounting standard 3. I am not giving that. I am not supposed to do, because under I am a small company as far as the company sector is concerned. In that case, I don't have to give cash flow statement. Okay. In that case, it is mandatory for you, that is mandatory for the company rather, to state that the company is a small and medium-sized enterprise, medium-sized company as defined in the general instruction in respect of accounting standards notified under Companies Act 2013. Accordingly, the company has complied with the accounting standards as applicable to small and medium-sized companies. Now, why this note is essential? This note is essential for the simple reason that you are telling that I am a small company and I have not followed certain mandatory accounting, non-mandatory accounting standards, I would say. Okay. So let us say that your ODT, that is your client, is telling you that I would like to give cash flow statement, or I would like to give, let's say, segment reporting as the case may be, because our bankers are requiring it. Though I am a small company, I'm not required to give it, but I am giving it. In that case, what happens is you will have to give a note that which other non-mandatory accounting standards you have not followed. Let us say you are giving cash flow statement, which you should not have given, but you have given. In that case, you will have to state that yes, although I have followed one of the non-mandatory accounting standard, which is cash flow statement. However, I have not followed the non-mandatory standard like segment reporting to lease accounting as the case may be. So that particular note will have to be particularly given. So be careful on that. This note has to appear in the notes on account of the company. In case if you are a small company or a small and medium sized figure cessation, in case if you cease to be an SMC for any reason, your turnover has exceeded the limits or your borrowing has exceeded the limits and you cease to be an SMC and you are supposed to maintain or follow all the accounting standards, in that case you don't have to uh, amend the prior figures of corresponding previous year. It's fine. You just have to disclose that I have ceased to be an SMC. To that extent, your previous figures may not match. Now, partial applicability, if an SMC opts, this is what I was talking to, that if an SMC opts not to avail exemption or relaxation available, then disclose the standards in respect of which it has availed the exemption. So, if you followed AS3, although you are not supposed to follow, then you will have to state that I have not followed AS70. This is how it has to be. Now, other thing is the laws will override the accounting standards. Okay, but as far as Companies Act is concerned, there is a specific mandate that accounting standards would override the provisions of company law. So, to that extent, our HQ and the ministry are at the variance. So, be careful on that as far as the non-corporate entities are concerned. The law prevents over the accounting standards. As far as the corporate entities are concerned, accounting standards overrides the provisions of Companies Act. And materiality, of course, is there. Materiality has to be followed in each respect. Now, applicability of accounting standards, mandatory as per section 133, which are there, which is there, and rule 7 of the Companies Act. Now, this rule, this accounting standard rules have been amended 2014, 15, 16. But fundamental is accounting standard rules 2006. Then, as far as the non-corporate entities are concerned, compliance is not given in the statute except accounting standard 1 and 2, but now you have ICDS. Okay. So, if you are a company or a non-company, whether you are under audit or not under audit, as the case may be, you have to follow ICDS. In case if you follow mercantile system of accounting, or you have business income, or you have income from other sources. So ICDS have to be followed. Okay. Now these are important accounting standards which one should keep in mind while auditing the company or a company. Accounting standard 1, that is disclosure of accounting policy. Accounting standard 2, which is with respect to inventories. Accounting standard 4, accounting standard 5, profit and loss account, and accounting standard 7, which is construction contract. Accounting standard 6 was there, but now it is merged with accounting standard 10. Okay, so AS6, AS9, that is revenue recognition, a fundamental accounting standard, I would say one should and one must know while auditing as to how do I recognize my revenue. Then accounting standard 10 is with respect to fixed assets and depreciation, of course. Accounting standard 13 is with respect to investment. Accounting standard 16 is with respect to borrowing cost. Accounting standard 18 is with respect to related parties. So these are the standards which one should know while auditing auditing books of account of a company or a non-company, as the case may be. Okay, and you have ICDS 1 to ICDS 10 as of today. We are not going to deal with ICDS per se, but yes, you also have to know the implications of income computation and disclosure standards. So there are so far 1 to 10 standards which have been issued by the Income Tax Department, that is CBDT, and 11 standard is in pipeline, real estate, but that has not yet seen light of the day. And yet every builder is governed by the guidance note of the institute. Okay, you need to take care of fair view, and at the same time be careful. A provision for taxation has to be made even if you are auditing an accounts of a proprietor or a partnership concern. At the same time, provision for deferred tax has to be made for all those non-corporate entities also. In case if this is not followed, then as an auditor, we have to qualify the report. Why we have to qualify the report? Because these are the mandatory accounting standard 22 is the mandatory accounting standard issued by the institute. And that is the case why you should know, you should rather qualify the report in case if you have not met the provision for tax, or you have not given the disclosure on account of, or you have not computed the deferred tax implication. एक मिनट, अच्छा पानी जरा दूध दूंगा. Okay, provision for tax and AS22. So be careful, you need to qualify the provision for tax. If you need to qualify the report in case provision for tax is not met or accounting standard 22, that is deferred tax provision, is not met. Now let us deal with certain the list of engagements and quality standards which the institute has issued. Essay 200, overall objectives of the independence of auditors and conduct of audit in accordance with accounting standards of auditing. That is, financial statements are free from material misstatement. Then essay 210, agree to the terms of audit engagement. So basically you need to take a letter. I'll be dealing with this in a short while from now, but engagement letter has to be there on your file before starting an audit. Then essay 220, that is with respect to quality control of an audit of financial statement, an auditor needs to remain alert. Auditor needs to remain alert, independence, he has to maintain his independence, reviews and SQC1. Of course, that is a little lengthy subject, but this is the standard on quality control of audit. Then 230 revised is audit documentation, which is again a very fundamental accounting standard as to how do you document your audit papers. Okay, so this standard has to be followed. Then 250 is with respect to consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statements. Now let us understand that today you are auditing one company. Okay, and we are under lockdown. We all know. Okay, and there is a law which makes it mandatory. There is a law which makes it mandatory for all of us to follow the lockdown. I am missing out the law right now, but let us understand that there is a law. Okay. Now, despite this, the entity is not under a kind of service which is very essential service. Okay, like let's say you are not a bank, you are a chartered accountant's office, and your office is open today. Then you are violating the law. You are supposed to work at home, work from home rather. Okay, you can work from home, but you cannot go to office and work. But supposedly, if you go to office and work, same way your client is going to office and working, he's also calling people and he's working. In that case, he may be exposed to the penal consequences under that. And if that is the case, then there you may have to make a provisioning that in case if the client may be exposed to a kind of penalty, or as the case may be, how do you deal with this client? Whether the client, this is one example. Let us say another, pollution control. Now, client is majorly violating the pollution law, and because of that, there are chances that the client may be asked to shut down the operations. And if the client is asked to shut down the operations, in that case, the client will not be able to remain a going concern. And that is the reason you may have to qualify the report that the client may not be a going concern considering all these aspects. So this is why consideration of laws and regulations is an essential part for us to understand. Okay, 260 is communication with those charged with governance. Now, ऐसा नहीं है that you do audit and after doing audit, you communicate with the client. As and when the audit is going on, you need to you need to go on communicating with the client that this is what the steps are, this is what your findings are. Okay, so there should not be surprises at end of the audit, but in case of necessary, you can communicate with the client during the course of audit. Then 265 is communicating deficiencies in internal control system to those charged with the governance. So you cannot just go and qualify the report that, see, there is no internal control system prevailing in this company. No, that is not the case. In case during the course of your audit, if you come across this kind of a non-compliance, then you have to intimate to the people, the directors, that internal controls are weak or are not present, as the case may be. Then 320, I'm not dealing with each and every standard of auditing, but major standards which I'm dealing with. SA 320, materiality in planning and performing an audit, you need to make an analytical review. Give you an example. Let us say you're doing vouching of purchase or vouching of sales or vouching of expense. Now your principal is telling you कि जाके test check करना. ओके अभी आप बोलोगे टेस्ट चेक कैसे करूं, मेरे को पता नहीं है, तो ही विल जस्ट से दैट ओके एनी वाउचर, expense voucher exceeding let's say rupees 1000 is to be audited by you. Any sale bill above 5000 rupees is to be audited by you. Any purchase bill above rupees 10000 is to be audited by you. Okay, then you are not following this conduct. You have to follow the analytical review. You have to go for sampling technique, which is provided in the standard, and accordingly you need to draw the samples out of the given law, and then you can be said to have complied with SA 320. Sampling technique, of course, I cannot teach you right now, but there is a technique which you should be careful about. Then these are audit consideration to an entity using service organization. In case if there is an outsourcing happening, then how do you deal with that? What is the chance that information of this entity is being dealt with another company, and how safe it is, and all these are the aspects. Then importance, another SA 500 is audit evidence. SA 505 is external confirmations, which is again a very important standard. By the auditing, you may ask the client to call for direct confirmations from creditors, debtors, etc., or lenders, as the case, or even bank statements could be pulled directly to the auditor from those parties. Okay, that is external confirmations. Then 510 is initial audit engagement, opening balances. How do you check your opening balances? Then 530 is audit sampling. 570 going concern, as I was saying, that whether an entity is a going concern or not, you will have to assess. And 580 is written representation, that is management's representation. And 600 is using work of auditor, other or internal auditor, etc. Then skip those. Means these are also there, of course, but we have a lot more questions to cover. Okay. Now, this is fundamentally the management's responsibility statement that you get or give in the auditor's report, which states that company's board of directors is responsible for matters stated in the say in section 134.5 of the Companies Act with respect to preparation of this this standalone financial statement, and this entire paragraph is there. Of course, not very important, but you should make it a point that responsibility statement is there in the report. And the auditor's responsibility. Of course, from the last year, the reporting requirement has been altered, and now auditor's responsibility comes first, and then the management responsibility. But this is basically the format which is there. So this is the background that I wanted to give before we venture into the auditing course. Now, let us understand the aspects of audit. You need to break your audit into three parts. One is pre-audit execution, another is audit execution, and a third part is post-audit execution. Now, let us say what is pre-audit execution. Before beginning with an audit, you must ensure that you have a appointment letter from the company. You will, in case if you are appointed as an auditor in place of someone else, then you should also have communication letter with the US auditor. You also have to have engagement letter, okay, which is signed by the company and the auditor. So engagement letter basically makes it very clear that this is my responsibility, this is your responsibility, this is my thing, this is your thing, as the case. So tomorrow the client cannot say, okay, no, I never knew that this is my responsibility. Okay, this is not. Then the permanent audit file. Then we have audit execution, knowledge of business, daily worksheet, very sheet, audit program, standards, accounting standards and standard essays which are there. List of auditing standards, accounting standards, auditing standards, auditing standards and guidance. Then you also have the memoranda. I'm dealing with this particular aspects of inquiries, RO, IS control checklist, IFS control and final checklist. Okay. And the post audit is basically current file work, content, management representation letter, draft annual report, and audit reports maintained by the ICAI. Now, before we venture into this, let us understand what these documents are. Okay, so I'll stop my presentation at this juncture and go to some Word and Excel files which I'll be dealing with it. Okay. Vitan bhai, is this file available on the net?
हेलो
ભાઈ
મેહુલભાઈ સચિન
હા સચિન ભાઈ આ વર્ડ ફાઇલ દેખાય છે અત્યારે
નહીં કઈ દેખાતું નથી
હા એટલે તો અત્યારે શું દેખાય છે સ્ક્રીન
ઉપર તમારો ઓડિટ એક્ઝિક્યુશન નો પ્લાન દેખાય છે
હા ઓડિટ
એક્ઝિક્યુશન્સ કંટ્રોલ ચેકલિસ્ટ એ દેખાય
એક મિનિટ કંટ્રોલ ચેકલિસ્ટ
47 નંબરની સ્લાઇડ
સોરી અચ્છા એટલે એક દેખાય છે એક મિનિટ વિતા લીધો એક જ મિનિટ વિતાનભાઈ સચિનભાઈ લાઈન પર છે હમણાં I just wanted to know whether this Word and Excel file they are available on the net or not.
That file that you shared.
Sachin bhai, एक मिनट सचिन भाई हाँ वितान भाई एक करनी है ना. So I have stopped. I, Thank you. Yeah, sorry folks, Sachin bhai. Yeah. Okay. So now basically this is the know your client kind of a thing, basically. Okay. So as I was telling that you should understand the client's business. So this is I'm sure this I'm told that the organizers have shared these files with you. Okay. So briefing more on important audit aspects like non-technical and technical. Okay. So this is basically the knowledge of client's business. Okay. This is that file. Okay. I'm not dealing with this file much, rather then I'll be dealing with another file which is compliance memoranda. Just a minute, I'll just. Now I'm dealing with another file which is compliance memoranda. Okay. Now this file basically deals with certain important audit documentation like accounting standard, the questionnaire on accounting standard. Okay, accounting standard 1, 2, 3, 4, and likewise. So it's a huge file of around 20 pages, which contains major accounting standards to be followed. Now, see, one thing is that you are following accounting standards. But how would you prove that these accounting standards have been followed? So this is how the documentation needs to be made that accounting standards are followed by you. Okay. Now, these are the inquiries which I'm dealing with in a separate slide in short while from now, which is also there in this particular thing. Then, whether you are supposed to follow the internal financial control. Okay, means is there any reporting requirement on the internal financial control under the company act? This will be the worksheet which will tell you whether you are covered by this or not. So this is one item. Now I'll go to another slide. This is of course the audit. Yeah, just a minute. This is the audit program that we have prepared. You could have another different kind of program in your office, but this has to be there on your file. Okay, so whether opening balances have been checked or not, and likewise. And I would like to just a minute, please. Yeah. Now I'll deal with this particular file in a little detail. Okay, while you are doing an audit, this is the final checklist which you could make while auditing. Okay, in the sense, this is a file which contains around 33 points. Okay, now first point is the appointment letter there on record or not? Okay, then is engagement letter there on record or not? Then, if is there any memorandum? If there is that memorandum of association, partnership deed, or constitution of the entity there on record or not? Like supposing you are making an audit of partnership or an LLP, is the case may be. So that particular document, partnership agreement or LLP agreement or memorandum, or as the case may be, is there on your audit file or not, has to be done. Then whether ADT1 has been filed with the ROC, because in case if you have not filed ADT1, there could be serious consequences. Is communication letter there on record or not? Have you required knowledge of business of the client, which we dealt with earlier? And then which accounting policy is followed, cash from accrual basis? Then how the stock is valued, whether at cost or NRV, whichever is low, less or weighted average as the case may be. Has the stock register been maintained? Are stock items in stock register in agreement with excise records? Of course, now it is GST. Then VAT and CST returns. Now they have to be made as GST returns. Whether your sales as per books of account is matching with the GST records or not. Then if you deduct a tax at source for Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, whether the statements under statements for means here your books of account and what is reported to the income tax department under Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and form number 27A which comes, are they matching with the entire books of account or not, which has to be taken care of. Then is the audit program there on record? He has checked audit checklist for accounting standard been filled up. Has compliance memorandum been filled up? Okay. Then CARO etc. which is there. So on and so forth. So many whether minutes fixed asset register is there, minutes book is there, closing balances are telling with account, and likewise around 33 points we have maintained. So while concluding the audit, if you fill this entire list up, then your life is relatively simple from an audit because it's a control checklist. Okay. So if you followed all these guidelines and then done your audit, then you have particularly every record in place in your audit working fine. So this is what I wanted to discuss with you guys about the documentation part, and why documentation part will be dealing in the last. Yeah. So we have dealt with all those Excel and Word files which were essential for us. So accounting standard control list, CARO checklist, company law checklist, and so on and so forth. Okay, of course, CARO list is also there. And in CARO list, if you look at, we have also given you the conclusion, calculation and conclusion. So for each and every aspect, you need to work out whether CARO would be applicable to you in the present circumstances or not. So that has to be forming part of your audit working papers. Post audit working executions. I think I deal with CARO checklist. Let me see. So these are the Caro compliance. I am dealing with that. Just a minute. Yeah. Inquiries pursuant to Companies Auditors Report 2016. Okay. Now, Caro, all you know that Caro is not applicable to certain companies. Okay. Which are small-sized companies, I would say, or SMCs. So, first thing first is whether the company is a private company or a public company. Okay. Now, if it is a public company, Caro is straight away applicable. You don't have to go anywhere else. You don't have to go further also. Okay. Then, if it is a private company, then you need to ascertain whether and how it is a private company. That is a definition. But you need to ascertain certain aspects. Like if it is a private company, then what is the sum of paid up capital and free reserves? Okay, if the amount exceeds 1 crore rupees, then Caro would be applicable. Okay, so you need to calculate your capital plus free reserves as of that date and put this figure here. Okay, let us say this figure is 1 crore 50 lakhs. In that case, Caro would be applicable, not otherwise. Okay. Then is your borrowing from bank exceeds 1 crore rupees? In that case, you have to mention here calculation and conclusion. That in case if it is less than 1 crore, you may say that Caro is not applicable. Otherwise, Caro is applicable. Okay. Then what is your turnover? Turnover, if it is less than 10 crore rupees, Caro is not applicable. But let us say that one of the conditions is strict. Although your turnover is less than 1 crore rupees, 10 crore rupees, but your capital and reserves are more than 1 crore rupees, or your borrowings are more than 1 crore rupees, Caro would be applicable. So if one of the conditions is hit, is satisfied, I would say, in that or violated the way you understand, then Caro would be applicable. Why this document is required? In case, let us say, if you have not followed Caro, if you have not given the Caro reporting, then your calculation and conclusion should state that why it is so, why I have not given the Caro. So this is the fundamental thing which you should know, that you should be documenting everything by whatever conclusions you are making, or whatever decisions that you are taking, as the case may be. You should document that fundamentally in your audit file, because it is your working paper that will help you tomorrow. मैंने कितना भी अच्छा ऑडिट किया है, in case if that is not supported by the fundamental audit working papers, I can be taken to task. Okay, be careful. Yeah. Post-audit executions are current while and management representation letter, which we already understood. Now, these are the inquiries that we need to make under section 143(1) of the Companies Act 2013. First inquiry that now we will say इसको क्या करना है, मुझे क्यों inquiry करना है, I'll explain that. But these are 6 inquiries under 143(1) you need to make while doing the audit. Number 1, are loans and advances made by the company covered by any security of the parties? If yes, are such loans and advances prejudicial to the interest of company or its members? Let us say company has given a loan of rupees 10 lakh to someone. Okay, and there is a security, but the security is only worth 5 lakh rupees. So in case अगर वो लोन वापस नहीं आता है, in that case what you will realize is only 5 lakh rupees and not entire 10 lakh rupees. In that case, it can be said that the security, the terms and conditions under which the loan is given is prejudicial to the interest of company. Now let us say the loan has been given to director. Okay, and what happens is the loan given to director is interest free. Okay, I'm just giving an example. It is not essential. What I'm telling is right. Okay, I'm just giving an example for the sake of understanding. Okay, now you are not a director, you are only a member of the company. Now, the director is enjoying at the cost of company. Company is paying interest, the director is not paying interest. Okay, so company is ultimately pay as a shareholder. I'll be getting less returns on the company's income. Okay, so it could be inferred, not essentially, but it could be inferred that the loan is prejudicial to the interest of members. So this is how one should understand whether the loan is prejudicial to the interest of company or its members or number two. There, see, as far as directors are concerned, there could be some contractual obligation also. So please don't infer that any interest loan given to director is always prejudicial. So don't do that thing from that end. Number two, the transactions that are say, represented merely by book entries have in fact taken place and are not prejudicial to the interest of company. Okay, so let us say there is a journal entry passed by the company. Okay, किसी को डेबिट कर दिया, किसी को क्रेडिट कर दिया. Okay, but the transaction in fact has not taken place. Okay, I'll give you an example. Let us say I am passing one journal entry, Mr. X account debit 1 crore rupees to sales 1 crore. Okay, goods are not supplied. At the same time, let's say invoice is not prepared, but my debtors are increased and my sales is increased. Okay, in this case, the transaction has not happened. It is represented by the book entry, but transaction has not happened. Okay, in that case, you will qualify the report that although the transaction is represented by a book entry, in fact, it has not taken place. Okay. Now the third point. Okay. If company is not an investment company or a banking company, where the investment in shares or debentures or securities are sold at a loss. So supposingly you are not a trading company. Okay, you are merely an investment company. Okay, so you are not basically trading in shares or investing in shares. Suppose forget investing company also. Let us say that आपका टेक्सटाइल का बिजनेस है. ओके, एंड टेक्सटाइल बिजनेस के साथ आपने इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में एंड दोज इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आर सोल्ड एट लॉस. Then you have to report here that the investments are sold at loss. Okay, you are not an investment company or a banking company, but you are an ordinary trading company which is trading in garments, is the case maybe, and you are dealing in shares also, and you are doing a loss on the share securities. Then you have to report that company has sold its investment at loss. Number four, are the loans and advances made by the company shown as deposits? Now I'll tell you how it is. Suppose I have given loan to my director of 1 crore rupees. Okay, but I don't want to show this as a loan, because अगर लोन दिखाता हूँ तो इनकम टैक्स वाले पीछे पड़ेंगे मेरे कि आपने ऐसा किया ऐसा किया. So I don't want to show it as a loan. In that case, what I would say, I will treat this loan as a deposit for property or as the case. So it's a camouflage transaction. So if it is a camouflage transaction, as an auditor, you have to catch it and report that, see, the loans and advances by the company are shown as deposits. Okay. So all whether whatever deposits which are there in the balance sheet, you should at least see whether are they in the nature of loans or not. Fifth, are personal expenses of directors or employees being charged to revenue other than payable under contractual obligation or in accordance with generally accepted business practice? Giving another example, डायरेक्टर का घर का इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल कंपनी ने भरा. ओके, it's purely a personal expenditure. Okay, now is there any contractual obligation? डायरेक्टर के अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर में कहीं भी लिखा है कि आपके इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, घर के इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का बिल कंपनी विल बी पेइंग? अगर नहीं लिखा है, then you have to report it. Getting? And point number 6, in respect of shares allotted for cash, has company actually received cash and the position stated in the balance sheet is correct and not misleading? Let us say I have issued shares, okay, and I'm showing that it is allotted for cash. But actually speaking, the money has not come in the company. I'm showing as share money receivable account debit to share capital account, and I'm showing the share capital share having been issued for cash. Then it's a misleading position, and the auditor needs to qualify. But in case all these points, if you consider that all these 6 items which are there are positive, there is nothing to be reported or nothing to be worried about. In that case, you don't have to do anything. But these inquiries have to be there on the record. Be careful on this, please. Now, small companies. Who are small companies? Why we are dealing with this particular things? Small companies, because if you are a small company, then certain accounting standards will not be applicable. Okay, so a small company administration, of course, before that, yeah, one of the things is cash flow statement is not to be given by a small company. So section 240 of the Companies Act states that financial statements include balance sheet, P&L, cash flow statement, statement of changes in equity, if applicable, and any explanatory note thereto. Okay. And financial statement with respect to one-person company or a small company will not cover the cash flow statement. Okay. So, how do you classify yourself as a small company? One, in case if your paid up capital does not exceed 50 lakh rupees, it can be up to 10 crore rupees if it is specified, if it is prescribed. But as of today, a small company means a company whose paid up capital does not exceed 50 lakh rupees, number one. And turnover as per profit and loss account for immediately preceding previous financial year does not exceed 2 crore rupees. It could be 100 crore rupees in case if it is so prescribed, but as of today. So how will you consider yourself to be a small company? In case if your paid up capital does not exceed, see, paid up capital and reserve nahi hai, please, be careful. Only paid up capital does not exceed 50 lakh rupees and your turnover does not exceed 2 crore rupees. If both these conditions simultaneously are complied with, in that case you would be treated as a small company. And if you are a small company, then you don't have to follow the non-mandatory accounting standards like cash flow statement, segment reporting, as the case may be. Now, how do you compute your turnover? Under the old definition of turnover, turnover means aggregate value of realization of amount made from sale, supply, distribution of goods. I'll give you an example. Let us say your sale is 1 crore rupees. But your debtors are, let's say, 40 lakh rupees. That means you realize 60 lakh rupees. Okay. And under the old definition, your realization only was turnover. So your turnover was only 60 lakh rupees. But now, new definition covers turnover means gross amount of revenue recognized in the profit and loss account. So whatever amount, gross amount of revenue, not sales. So what gross amount of revenue recognized in the profit and loss account from sales, supply or distribution of goods or on account of services rendered or both by the company during the financial year. Okay. So now how do you compute your total revenue, which is disclosed under Schedule 3 to the Companies Act? That means your sale plus other income and revenue from discontinuing operations would also be covered under the definition of revenue. Okay. So considering all those revenues, if you are less than the specified limit under section 285, then you could be treated as a small company. Otherwise, you will be a large company or not a small. This is free reserves, of course. This is their making price. You can always. Now, why do I need to? I also need to understand the definition of associate company. Okay, why do I need to do this? Because there is one provision under section 129 of the Companies Act for consolidation. Okay. So in case I have a subsidiary company, in that case consolidation is essential for me. Consolidation of accounts. Okay. Now if I have an associate, now who is an associate? Associate means an entity wherein I have investment of not less than 20% of the share capital, or I have a decision making power of 20% or more. Okay. In that case, that particular entity, so let us say I am a company, there is a partnership company, okay, wherein I am, let's say, partner of 25%. In that case, that partnership company will be treated as my associate. Why? Because I am holding 20%, more than 20% of the voting power in that partnership. Same way, there is a private limited, another private limited company. I am XYZ. There is another private limited company, ABC. I have bought shares of that particular ABC company, and which is exceeding 25% of that share capital. 20%. Okay. Let's say I'm holding 25% of that. Then that ABC company becomes my associate company, and I have to consolidate that account also under AS20, accounting standard 23, not as per accounting standard 21, but accounting standard 23. So please be careful. When you are auditing, you should also see the investment pattern of the company. And if you find that there is an entity where 20% or more of the voting power or share capital of another company is given, okay, in that case, you should also go for accounting standard 23 consolidation. Now, associate also includes joint venture. Okay, so joint venture, in case if this company is into joint venture with another company, and there also you have a share of more than 20%, then you have to follow accounting standard 27. So subsidiary AS21, accounting standard 21, associate accounting standard 23, and joint venture accounting standard 27. So this is what you need to know about associate company. So सिर्फ मैंने मेरी कंपनी का ऑडिट करके रख दिया is not the case. I also need to understand that even those entities wherein I have financial interest exceeding 20% are taken care of in consolidation. Now, these are certain important sections which you will keep in mind while auditing the books of account of a company. Section 73 deposits. As a company, you cannot take loan from anybody. You can take loans from your directors or relatives of the directors, any amount, no problems. But in case you are taking loan from a shareholder, then the loan amount cannot exceed more than 100% of the paid up capital and free reserves of that company. So that is section 73. You should keep in mind. Section 135, corporate social responsibility. If you are a listed company having turnover a net worth of more than 500 crore rupees, etc., then CSR is in place. It's a huge concept right now. You just need to understand 135 needs to be followed in case if you are a listed, if you are a company having net worth of more than 500 crore or turnover of more than 1000 crores as the PSMD. Third section, which is very important for a company, is section company audit is 185. Notes to directors. Directors of certain related parties, if there are loans given, then special resolution is to be passed. Of course, if you are a private company, then 185 is not applicable. But if you are a public company, whether on listed or unlisted as the case may be, 185 is applicable. So be careful on that. 186 again is not applicable to private company, but a public company. Limit for intercompany investments and loans. In case if your loan plus investment exceeds 60% of your paid up capital and reserves, then you have to file the past special resolution. So you need to consider 186 also. 192 is restriction on non-cash transactions with the directors. If the directors के साथ आपका कोई नॉन कैश ट्रांजेक्शन है, ओके, सिर्फ आपने कोई भी लेट से एसेट लिया है डायरेक्टर से, लेकिन उसके बदले शेयर दिया है, purchased asset from a director and in lieu of that you issued shares, okay, it would be a non-cash transaction. 192 is applicable. It's not an illegal transaction, please, but it's a there are certain restrictions on non-cash transactions which you should be careful about. Then 197 is managerial remuneration. Of course, this is not applicable to a private company. Now this is the explanation of 185, which I'm not giving right now because we have around 10-15 minutes to go. Then you also have to consider the depreciation schedule 2 to the Companies Act 2013, wherein how would you calculate depreciation? Your residual value of the asset should not be more than 5%. 188, section 188 related party transactions, section 77 registration of shares. Supposingly, company has taken any loan against a security, whether it is pledge, hypothecation or mortgage, as the case may be. Pledge कैसा होता है? Pledge मैंने जाके asset दे दिया. Hypothecation is always on a movable asset, and pledge, hypothecation and mortgage. Yeah, property mortgage किया है, then charge is to be registered with the registrar of companies. So you need to understand this also, that if it is secured loan, the charge is registered. What are the consequences if the charge is not registered? If the charge is not registered, then the loan becomes payable immediately. So that is the reason why charge is to be registered. 129 is financial statements and consolidated financial statements, which we dealt with. Subsidiary includes joint venture. 287 is subsidiary, associate is 26, and account is 123 for investment in associate, and AS27 financial reporting is for joint venture. We already dealt with this. Okay. Now we come to the almost we have completed 70% of our portion. This is the list of auditors report. As of today, CARO 20 has been introduced, but it has been deferred till next year. So today we are concerned with CARO 2016. Okay. So the order emphasis on auditors' duties and extension of proprietary aspect, order not to limit duties. So basically आपने CARO बना दिया करके ऐसा नहीं बता सकते मेरा ड्यूटी खत्म हो गया. As an auditor, you have to go, you must keep it. Okay. So this is how it is. And the institute has given certain formats of auditors report, and SS 700 to 705, which I'm not dealing with right now, but you have to pick up the right kind of audit report for you. Now, applicability of CARO, it applies to all companies, including foreign companies, except banking company, insurance company, or company licensed to operate under Section 8. I missed one point. Section 8 company, if you are doing the audit of a charitable company, Section 8 company, in that case, even if it is a small company, cash flow statement has to be given. Be careful. Section 8 company, CARO is not applicable, but cash flow statement is applicable. Be careful. Okay. It also does not apply to a one-person company or a small company as defined under Section 285, which we already dealt with. A private company, not being a subsidiary holding company, having paid up capital not more than 1 crore rupees, okay, is also out of CARO. If your loan is not more than 1 crore rupees, you are out of CARO. If your turnover is less than, if your revenue, not turnover, revenue. Revenue means your turnover plus other income plus discontinued or revenue from discontinued operation is less than 10 crore rupees, then also CARO is not applicable. We already dealt with this. That's the reason I'm going a little fast. So, how do you document this? You go to that CARO checklist and fill that whether CARO is applicable or not. Make calculation, make conclusion, and write CARO is applicable, CARO is not applicable, as the case may be. Now we come to the last aspect of tax or not, second last aspect. Last aspect is documentation. Second last aspect is tax audit under 44AB. There are various limits under 44AB, 1 crore, 2 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore, and for professional it is 50 crore. Let us say your turnover is less than 51 crore rupees. Okay, then tax audit is not applicable to you fundamentally. Okay. Now, what happens is that you are under presumptive taxation. Okay, if your presumptive taxation is under 44A(d). Okay, where what is the mandate that you must show not less than 8% of your turnover as your net profit. Okay, so let us say your turnover is 50 lakh rupees. Okay, so 50 lakh rupees का 8% कितना होता है? Okay, around kind of 3 lakh rupees के आसपास होएगा. Okay, 8%. 3 lakh to 4 lakh rupees का turnover profit होएगा approximately. If you do, let's say on a 50 lakh turnover, you show a profit of 1 lakh rupees only or 2 lakh rupees only, which happens to be less than 8% under as specified under 44AD. In that case, you have to mandatorily get your accounts audited. But in case if your turnover is more than 1 crore rupees, let's say up to 2 crore rupees, okay, and you are showing your turnover, your profit of more than 8%, then you don't have to get your accounts audited. Okay. Now, Finance Act 2020 has brought in another limit of 5 crore rupees. What it says that if your cash expenses are less than 5% of your total expenses, in the sense all your purchases, all your expenses, uska total karo. And if your cash expenses are lesser than 5%, at the same time on your revenue side, all your sales are less, your cash receipts out of your turnover is less than 5% of the total turnover. Okay. If both these conditions are met with, in that case, even if your turnover exceeds 1 crore or 2 crore or up to 5 crore rupees, you don't have to get your accounts audited. So ordinarily 1 crore rupees का लिमिट क्रॉस कर दिया, ऑडिट करवाना है. लेकिन अगर आप 1 करोड़ से ऊपर जाते हो अप टू 2 करोड़ रुपीस, अगर आपने 8% का प्रॉफिट दिखा दिया है, you don't have to get your accounts audited. Then further limit in case if you go up to 5 crore rupees, but your cash expenses and cash income both are less than 5% of the respective components. That is, cash expenses are less than 5 total expenses by 5%, and your cash income or cash receipts are less than 5% of your total receipts. In that case, you don't have to get your accounts audited under section 54. Now there is a controversy that let us say that I am showing less than 8% turnover, but I am up to 5 crore rupees, and I am complying with the provision of complying the cash receipts and cash payments as the case may be. Should I not be getting my accounts audited? One view says that yes, even if you don't show more than 8% in case of 5 crore turnover, less than 5 crore turnover, you can still get out of the net. It's a controversial issue. I'm not going into details, and people are debating it as of today. Even I am not sure what's going to happen. But this is, I'm just trying to make it a point that up to 5 crore rupees, you may not be required to get your accounts audited. Then, if your turnover is more than 50 lakh rupees, as a professional, turnover means your receipts. You are a chartered accountant or a doctor or a lawyer or an architect or a fashion designer, is the case. These are notified professions basically. Or actor, you are a Miss Amitabh Bachchan. You know, the Amitabh Bachchan, though he's running into crores, but any actor whose turnover is more than 50 lakh rupees, in that case, he has to get his accounts audited. Okay. And if your turnover is less than 50 lakh rupees, you have a provision, one more provision, 44ADA, which is again a presumptive provision, that in case if you show more than 50% of your gross receipts as turnover, in that case, you don't have to get your accounts audited. In the sense, let us say your turnover is 40 lakhs. Your turnover in the sense, gross receipts from your profession are 40 lakhs. And आपने अपना इनकम 25 आपने इनकम 40 lakhs में से आपने एक्सपेंसेस लिया, but you're showing net profit of let's say 25 lakhs. In that case, you don't have to get your accounts audited. But in case, let's say you are showing profit of only 15 lakhs out of turnover of 40 lakhs, इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि 40 लाख में से 25 लाख का खर्चा दिखाया और 15 लाख का प्रॉफिट दिखाया. In that case, under presumptive taxation scheme, you will have to get your accounts audited under section 44A. Now, whether concept of turnover, I think 12:30 is done. Vidang bhai, till what time can we go ahead? It's 12:30 now. I'll require another 10 minutes.
We can go ahead, sir. It's okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Charlie. Yeah. So, whether your turnover would include excise, sales tax, now GST or not, Institute says that whatever method of accounting that you follow will have to be followed here. So let us say your accounting method is inclusive method, that is GST आप include करके सबको देते हो. बिल आपका 100 रुपीस का बिल है, 18 रुपीस का GST है, so 118 होता है. If you are showing in your books of account 118 is your sales, then your turnover would also be 118. But in case if you are following exclusive method of accounting, in that case 100 rupees only will be treated as your turnover. Okay. Then applicability for construction contracts, whether turnover is let's say आपने अपना construction business चालू है, you are making a building. Okay. Your work in progress exceeds 1 crore rupees, but your sale is less than 1 crore rupees. Should you get your accounts audited? The view is you don't have to get your accounts audited if your turnover, because your work in progress per se is not your turnover. Okay. Now another aspect is, let's say you are a partner. You are a partner in a big four. Okay, and your profit or remuneration or interest exceeds 1 crore rupees. In that case, should you get your accounts audited, because it is exceeding 50 lakh rupees naturally, right? In that case, should you get your accounts audited? It's much debated issue. It has gone up to tribunal level. Most of the tribunals are of the view that a partner is not supposed to get his accounts audited, even if his share of profit remuneration exceeds 1 crore 50 lakh rupees, not 1 crore typically, but 50 lakh rupees. Okay. But in case of a business entity, if you are a partner and your profit is more than 1 crore, then there the limit of 1 crore is applicable. But all these courts are almost on the view that a partner is not required to get his accounts audited, even if his profit or remuneration exceed or interest exceed 1 crore rupees. But there is another decision from Kolkata Tribunal which states that no, you should get your accounts audited once your limit is exceeded. So this point is little debated, little controversial. By and large, Mumbai ITAT, Mumbai Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, is in favor of the SSC that you don't have to get your accounts audited, but you may take a code or your principal will take a code of this. Now, another item is, let's say you are a professional or a businessman. Nursing home is business or profession is an issue. Okay. Now let's say nursing home is run by a doctor, then the limit of 50 lakh rupees will be applicable. But if a nursing home is run by another person, let's say I'm not a chartered accountant. Let's say I'm running a nursing home. I'm employing doctors. I'm an ordinary BCom. In that case, the limit of 1 crore will be applicable because it is my nursing home, I'm employing doctors. But suppose I'm a doctor and carrying on running nursing home, then 50 lakh rupees limit will be applicable. This is how one should understand. Interior decorators, again 1 crore limit. Management consultants, if these are whether you are a notified professional, in that case 50 lakh rupees, otherwise the limit would be 1 crore. So these are the controversial items wherein one is really not sure whether one should go for 50 lakh or 1 crore. But by and large, the thing one should keep in mind is, if you are a notified profession like actor, chartered accountant, lawyer, doctor, as the case may be, then 50 lakh rupees, otherwise 1 crore. Now, which forms to be issued or used? Suppose you are a corporate entity, then form number 3CA is to be used, otherwise 3CB is to be used. Now, let's say apart from corporate, let us say you are supposed to get your accounts audited under some other law, limited liability partnership. The limit is in case as per the LLP law, if your turnover is more than 40 lakh rupees, mind you 40 lakh rupees, or if your capital contribution is more than 25 lakh rupees, then you are supposed to get your accounts audited under LLP law, LLP Act 2008. Okay. Another, let's say you are a stockbroker. Okay, you are an individual. Yeah. Sharmi, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're
Yes,
audible.
yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So suppose I'll just repeat. Suppose I am an LLP. Okay, my turnover is more than 40 lakh rupees, or my capital contribution of partners is more than 25 lakh rupees. In that case, I have to get my accounts audited under LLP law. Suppose I am an individual stockbroker. Okay, in that case, I am supposed to get my accounts audited under the stock exchange SEBI law. Okay. Okay. So, in case if I am required to get my accounts audited under any particular other law, okay, then I have to file, I have to issue form number 3CA and not form 3CB. Be careful. So it is not essential that only companies are supposed to means you have to use 3CA only for company. No, any person whose accounts are being audited by audited under any other law, you have to follow form number 3CA. Otherwise, you will give 3CB. Okay. Now, giving comments, you can give your own comments on 3CB. Okay, it's little technical. I think this is for chartered accountants. I'll skip. Let us not bother students with this particular thing. Okay, then adding responsibility para, I think I'll skip this. One more thing that I will just ask you to follow is, please ensure that notes on accounts are not used for the auditor's own reasons. Like we have verified the vouchers, or we have relied on the what you call certificate of management, or we have relied on the vouchers prepared by the management, etc. ऐसा notes में बहुत सारे जन लिखते हैं. Please don't write. Notes on accounts is the prerogative of management and not auditor. Your prerogative is your audit report, and you have to just give everything into audit report only. None of your remarks should come under the notes on account. Okay. Now, notes on account would normally contain method of accounting followed with a cash or mercantile. Then method of inventory, fixed asset depreciation, investments, method of accounting for foreign exchange fluctuations. Then items that may require qualification. When qualification will be required, one mandatory accounting standard is not followed, especially for companies. Like I told you, accounting standard 22, provision for taxation not done by a proprietor or a partnership or an LLP, as the case may be. Then you have to qualify the report. Okay. Non provision for tax, employee benefits, especially retirement benefits not provided for. Confirmation of balance is not received. Inventory valuation on estimated basis. ऐसे ही हमने बना दिया valuation. Then you are not violating the provisions of accounting standard 2. Qualify the. Okay. So 3CD has now 41 clauses have been increased to around 44, 45 clauses, but there are so many clauses which you need to understand. Take care of them. So we come to the last part of our thing, documentation, which is required to be maintained by us as chartered accountant. One is register of tax audit carried out, tax audits carried out by us. Number two, documentation for 3CD should be separate. Checklist for 3CD should be separate. Like हमने जैसे वो accounting standards के लिए पूरा checklist बनाया था, वैसे ही आप 3CD के लिए भी you can make a separate checklist. Separate management representation letter should be there. And importance of peer review, it is very important for peer review. Peer review means another chartered accountant would review your firm and see whether you are following the guidance of the SU, guidelines of the SU or okay. Now, fundamental thing, judicial pronouncements should be kept in mind while you are auditing penny books. Okay. In the event of conflict between the judicial pronouncements and law, let us say leave encashment, there is a again Kolkata High Court judgment which states that 43B is ultra virus. Okay, if 43B is ultra virus, this is what Kolkata High Court says, then it's a judicial pronouncement. Now, should you follow that judgment or not, you will have to mention that I am following this judgment. Okay. Follow accounting standards, standards of auditing, and guidance. Then specific principles are particulars of income expenditure covered in more than one head. You should make suitable cross referencing. Like TDS का जो compliance है वो दो जगह पे आता है. Okay. So I'm missing on because I don't remember the clause right now. But दो जगह पे TDS है तो उसका दोनों का cross referencing करना चाहिए. Then again fixed asset and depreciation, उसका भी दो clauses है, उसका भी cross referencing जरूरी है. Okay. Allowances or disallowance product of law. Insufficient. These are little technical. I would skip them. Avoid using notes, as I said. Please be careful. Preserve working papers. आपने जो working papers बनाए हैं ना, queries बनाए हैं ना, बाद में audit कर दिया, query solve कर दिया, फाड़ के फेंक दिया. Don't do that, please. You need to maintain your queries, and they have to form part of your audit working papers, please. Okay. Now this is very important. Let us say you are following, you are making auditing one doctor who is following case system of accounting. Okay, then this note should be there in the 3CD, not 3CD, 3CD, which states that it is policy of the SSC to prepare his financial statements on cash receipts and disbursement basis. On this basis, revenue and related assets are recognized when received rather than when earned, and expenses are recognized when paid rather than when obligation is incurred. In our opinion, the account show true and fairly. But this note has to be there. मेरा note नहीं है, issued का note. Okay, be there. Now, why documentation is required is for the simple reason that auditors are increasingly being held up by courts and various. Second thing, it's a self-quality check whether I have done my audit properly or not. Okay. There is an existence of big gap between the real scope of audit and public perception. कभी भी कोई भी fraud होएगा ना, तो सबसे पहला क्या बोलेगा पता है? Auditor क्या करता था? आपने Yes Bank, Punjab Bank, Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, okay, Hero Choksi case, everywhere auditors are being held up. Auditor क्या कर रहा था? Now, why you require documentation is for this reason. That लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि ऑडिट का फंक्शन क्या है. People just feel that auditor भगवान है. और लारा दत्ता को एक बार पूछा था, वो वर्ल्ड she was Miss World at that point in time. She was asked, who is your god? And she answered, my chartered accountant is my god. Okay. Now this is the perception of people that chartered accountant Bhagwan hai. Just understand, chartered accountant cannot know everything. So your audit documentation will only support you in case suppose some inquiries are made against you. Okay. So it's a self-defense in the court of law. Evidence of audit having been planned and performed. It's an evidence. Okay. So adopt a policy or documentation procedure that is supported by the management and routinely followed by the staff. Okay, pre-printed worksheets can be given for the staff. Okay, and retain all the documentation for about 10 years. It's a tangible reflection of caliber of high quality service. It's a reminder to the client what has been done because client बोलेगा आपने क्या किया क्यों फी दूं मैं आपको. You can show that ये audit मैंने किया है. This is the proof. There could be more opportunities for offering new services, improves writing and communication skill for you, and it's a billable service. In case if you make documentation, you would understand that इसका भी bill मुझे करना चाहिए. So this is what is all about the audit that I wanted to share with you all. Thank you so much for all the participants. Thank you so much, Chamber of Tax Consultants, for giving me this opportunity to share my views on the audit. I hope this. I'm not able to see any of you, so I really don't know who are there. I'm just facing a hole right away. So we cannot solve all our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. In case I've spoken something which you did not like or I did not speak something which you wanted as the case may be, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shami, over to you.
Sir, thank you for the wonderful session today. I request Sachin sir to formally give a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, rather good morning still, friends. Rather good afternoon. Uh, Mehul bhai, it's a fabulous task to listen you. As usual, you are a master in your task of company secretary level, and you have presented the uh, this marathon 1 hour 45 minutes, which I've seen covering all aspects of audit and giving a thorough knowledge to our participants. I, on behalf of Chamber of Tax Consultant, propose a hearty vote of thanks to you and request everybody to be wherever you are. Please play clap for our speaker for today.
Thank you so
Mehul
much.
bhai,
Thank you for the opportunity.
there are one or two questions. I think somebody has raised the hand.
Yeah, sure.
I think some Chirag Jain, Charmi, they have not
Sir.
posed the question,
So they have not actually posted questions,
but
and
they have
I
raised
I'll
the
hold it.
hand. Some Charmi, Chirag Jain has raised the
I
hand.
think he has already left, sir.
He has left. I think one girl, I forgot her name. She has also raised the hand, but I don't know. They have not posed the question.
Yeah, they've not posted
This
questions.
is not the post the question. Okay, sir. We are
Okay.
ending. So all the
Sachin bhai,
participants. Yeah.
Sachin
Tell
bhai,
me.
what we can do is if the email it to you, you can forward it to
Yeah,
me. I
sure,
can
sure, sir.
answer.
Whenever they will, any of you have any query, you can email us. Mehul bhai is solving your query online, and we'll post you that answer to you. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
a lot,
Thank you.
Mehul bhai, once again. Thanks a lot, Charmi, Vitang, and Chamber. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
sir. Thank
Good
We
you.
day.
meet
Thank you.
tomorrow again at 11 a.m. for the
Yeah,
last session.
tomorrow once again 11 a.m. we are meeting for on through webinar for talk on
GST.
GST annual
And
return and audit. And the speaker is CA Raj Khona. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll sign off. Thank you.
Yep,
Okay,
thank
thank you
you.
very much, sir.